Lloyd Frontera elucidates the unparalleled work capabilities of the Ghost Skeleton Worker Squad, emphasizing their ceaseless productivity, lack of fatigue, absence of sleep, disinterest in food, and the notable fact that they don't require wages. He recounts an incident where Count Namoran, having regained his energy, fainted upon visiting the construction site. Lloyd Frontera, emanating light from his eye, proudly declares these workers as labor spirits, underscoring his identity as a skilled summoner. He challenges anyone who doubts this ability, pointing out the distinctive eye that becomes visible when he opens it widely. Count Namoran expresses skepticism, noting the rarity of a genius summoner and highlighting that he has never encountered an instance of eyes shining in such a manner. Lloyd Frontera responds by questioning why someone like Miss Siluria can be recognized as a magic genius while he is not, and why fires can emanate from her eyes, but not from his. He issues an apology. Lloyd Frontera reflects that lies can be acceptable as long as they cause no harm, expressing a lack of concern about their morality. The message box alerts that this line of thinking appears perilous. Winter arrives, bringing with it the falling snow, and the completed anchors have arrived, marking the final stage of the slope stabilization construction of Namoran just before its completion. Javier sits atop the mountain, feeling the snow, and a memory surfaces where Miss Siluria once touched his hand. Examining his hand, he is interrupted as Miss Siluria approaches from behind, addressing him. He inquires about the progress of the construction, suggesting that detailed reports should be discussed with Master Lloyd. However, she clarifies that her purpose is to see him. He questions the reason for her visit and what she requires. She explains her stagnation in mana utilization, and witnessing his ability to control mana freely, she believes that learning this method could enhance her magic. He agrees to teach her everything he knows, eliciting joy from her. Meanwhile, Lloyd Frontera turns back to observe the interaction. Sometime later, he reflects on a memory where Miss Siluria lies unconscious in his hands. He contemplates that revenge was sought upon him for killing the monster, and he believes that anyone who seeks his help should leave. Frustrated, he curses and labels Javier as a cursed mana individual, convinced that he is destined to have no companions. He resigns himself to fighting alone repeatedly until exhaustion takes over and he succumbs to death. Determined not to let anyone into his heart, he acknowledges that his heart could lead others to their demise, attributing his boundless strength to a fate imposed upon him. Subsequently, Lloyd Frontera announces the flawless completion of the slope construction, assuring that regular maintenance will eliminate any concerns. He expresses gratitude for the construction payment, which surpasses the initial agreement. Count Namoran responds by stating that it's insufficient, asserting that there is more to be done. He instructs everyone to acknowledge their territory's benefactor, and the crowd collectively rises with a slogan of appreciation. He believes he has earned a substantial amount of money, is highly excited, and will indeed be able to indulge in leisure activities upon his return. Count Namoran suggests one more thing for the last time, asking how about becoming his son-in-law and inheriting Namoran. He firmly declines, stating that he is destined to be the king of his territory. He bows down and requests forgiveness for repeatedly rejecting the proposal, emphasizing that he is the heir of the Frontera family and Namoran already possesses an exceptional heir. He mentions the individual who will soon become the continent's greatest mage, Miss Siluria. He states that they will now take their leave. Count Namoran expresses gratitude, emphasizing that he won't forget the help for the rest of his life. Miss Siluria and Javier make eye contact with affection. Lloyd Frontera calls Javier, who responds affirmatively. Lloyd Frontera suggests that he stay here, assuring him of a higher salary and more excellent prospects for success in life. Javier inquires if he has lost his mind after absorbing poisonous mana, stating that they were already peculiar to begin with. Lloyd Frontera questions what he just said. Javier asserts that he is a knight of the Frontera family and will remain so for the rest of his life until he dies. Lloyd Frontera poses a hypothetical scenario, asking what if he commanded him to do so. Javier declares that he won't comply and requests execution. Lloyd Frontera acknowledges the stubbornness and suggests they depart. After a while, Erox Frontera informs Marbella that Lloyd Frontera is back and suggests they go meet him outside. They both run toward the door and see Lloyd Frontera approaching with many headless skeletons. Lloyd Frontera explains that these entities are known as the spirits of labor, summoned through his summon magic. Erox Frontera expresses acceptance, indicating that he is not surprised by what Lloyd has brought back, but inquires about Javier. He observes Javier standing there in a girl's costume. Javier reflects that he agreed to that foolish bet while he was out of sorts. Lloyd Fronter points at Javier and states that if that individual survives, he will serve as his subordinate for a year. If he does not survive, then he is to dress up as Javiello when they return to their country, and Lloyd asks how that sounds. Erox Fronter hugs and mentions that it must have been hard for him to stay inside the closet all this while. Javier insists that's not what this is. Erox reassures him, stating it's okay and not a bad thing. He is just a little different. Javier once again asserts that's not what this is. Lloyd Fronter laughs at him, hugs his parents, and thinks he is so happy to have come back home with peace of heart. The workers unload the items from the cart. He contemplates having a substantial amount of money that will allow him to do nothing but play for the rest of his life, finally achieving a state of idleness. Suddenly, the royal messenger arrives and announces the royal order. He states that Lloyd Fronter is ordered to be a part of the special envoy departing to Isfahan. Lloyd Fronter exclaims, "What?" The messenger clarifies that he is to leave immediately. Soldiers dress him and hold him, initiating the process of dragging him away. After a while, the caravan of the Queen passes through their way. Lloyd Fronter sits sadly inside the cart. Javier places his hand on his head and advises him not to cry, stating it's too ugly. Lloyd asks how he is supposed not to cry. Delegation Captain Count Ventura inquires why he looks so upset when he has just received an honorable mission from the Queen. Lloyd expresses that he feels so honored that his tears cannot stop flowing, and he wonders why he would go there. He questions why she sent him there. He wishes to go home. He hates her. The scene shifts to a flashback. Queen Alicia Termina Magentano asks the reason why she chose Lloyd Fronter to be in the delegation. Count Ventura agrees, acknowledging that while Lloyd contributed significantly in the aftermath of the losses incurred due to the monsters, he is unsure how that would make him an excellent diplomatic official. He expresses his query due to his lack of wisdom. She clarifies that being a diplomatic official has nothing to do with that. Count Ventura asks why she would choose him. She assures him of one thing. From the moment he receives the order to become an envoy, he will cry and create a huge fuss. She explains that this is because his dream of living a carefree life in a quiet corner of the kingdom will be destroyed. She adds that the report she received regarding the Namoran incident stated that the Knights of Namarana had defeated the Hell Knight. She asserts that Lloyd and his escort knight simply gathered information and provided it to them, considering it nonsense. Even if the summon was incomplete, it's not an entity that mere knights can defeat. She is confident that Lloyd and his knight were the ones who beat it, and must have asked Count Namoran to keep their actual involvement a secret. She suggests that Count Namoran might have just written a line because he could not do that, describing Lloyd as the kind of man who is not interested in success or fame. He simply wants to indulge in leisure activities. She concludes that's why she is certain he will definitely bring back results, as he easily bears grudges and is a materialistic person who's constantly charming. He wonders if she's complimenting him or insulting him. She advises that even if he looks like he's about to die, they should leave him be, and he'll understand eventually after weighing out the pros and cons. She predicts that he will realize that Samarkand has something he wants. The scene shifts back to the present. Lloyd Fronter continues to cry. Count Ventura observes that he doesn't seem like someone who understands anything, and he can't bring himself to like this man who is so materialistic, only desiring money and ignoring honor. Meanwhile, a soldier kneels down in front of Samarkand and respectfully addresses him as the great and all-powerful Sultan. He informs Samarkand that Magentano's delegation will soon arrive at the place. Samarkand instructs him to ensure that they receive the treatment they deserve. After a while, Count Ventura arrives at the palace and inquires if there isn't a mistake here. They are the envoys of Magentano. He questions if they are genuinely suggesting that this is their accommodation and whether it's acceptable to be this disrespectful to diplomatic officials. A well-dressed man responds that there's no mistake. They simply followed the orders of the all-powerful Samarkand. Count Ventura asserts that they will see Samarkand immediately and then bring them to him. He informs him that Samarkand is currently busy with state matters, so he won't be able to grant them an audience. Count Ventura asks how long they need to wait in such a place. He replies that he's not sure, but at least 6 months. Count Ventura exclaims, asking what nonsense that is. He presents him with a necklace and explains that if he dislikes the accommodations, he can use this Padishira to find better lodging. As long as he possesses this potasher in Isfahan, he will receive the blessings and grace of the all-powerful Samarkand. Count Ventura questions if he is treating the envoys of the Magentano kingdom like beggars. The man clarifies that he seems to misunderstand. It's an honor for him to be bestowed with this potasher. He throws the necklace on the floor and leaves, bidding them to have a good rest. Count Ventura becomes enraged, verbally abuses them, and asserts that they have gone too far in insulting their kingdom, essentially declaring it an act of war. The royal messenger inquires about what they should do. Count Ventura informs him that he has sent a letter back to their kingdom, requesting them to send a large delegation here. They must let the surrounding countries know about this fact to exert pressure on them. He mentions that he hasn't seen the young master of Frontiera around anywhere for a while now. Count Ventura advises not to pay any attention to him, emphasizing that what's more important now is the whereabouts of the potasher that was on the ground just now. He asks where it went. After a while, a poor little girl holding a basket pleads, "Please buy some torches." They light up very quickly. A man becomes angry and retorts, "Don't get in his way, beggar." She sits in a corner, starts crying, and laments that she was not able to sell torches again today. She doesn't know where she should hide and sleep tonight. Lloyd Frontiera arrives and asks if she is looking for a place to sleep. He offers to help her and invites her to come with him. After a while, Lloyd Frontiera is walking with a little girl in the market. She states that this inn is the most expensive inn in the capital, and she cannot let him, someone she is meeting for the first time, do this for her. He laughs and informs her that she is mistaken. This inn is his, and he has just bought it. He shows her the papers and states that this is the title deed. She should sign here and take it. She inquires about his identity. He shows her the potasher necklace and states that he is someone who has been blessed with the grace of the all-powerful Samarkand. Displaying the potasher, he announces that he will be treating everyone to the most expensive meal in this restaurant, with him footing the bill. A person is shocked to see the potasher and remarks that it is the potasher that can buy anything. Another person mentions that it is their first time visiting it. Lloyd Frontiera instructs them to call all their family members, relatives, and neighbors. Tonight, there shall be no hunger in this city. Everyone becomes excited. He emphasizes that they have the blessing of the all-powerful Samarkand. He goes to a shop and asks if this is the most expensive silk in the city. The shopkeeper responds that no, this is the most expensive silk in the whole world. He points out and specifies that in that case exclude those and give him everything else. After a while, he goes to the seaside. A healthy man asks if he wants to borrow a personal sailing boat. He shows Patashir, points to a big ship, and states that no, he wants to buy it, and he will buy all the perfumes and condiments that are in this market. Please prepare to fill 6 of his sailing boats fully. He mentions that they will pass through Cremo and get to Frontiera. All the other shopkeepers also display their items and request him to buy them too. A person asks if he does not need the sword. Lloyd Frontiera replies, "Okay, please line up, and for the grace of the Samarkand, reach everyone." Just then, the soldiers arrive there, point at Lloyd Frontiera, and say, "There he is, catch him." They apprehend Lloyd Frontiera and Javer, tie them with rope, place swords on their necks, and present them in front of King Samarkand. He inquires if he is the person who spent a whole year's worth of the palace's budget. Lloyd Frontiera identifies himself as Arcos Frontiera's son, Lloyd Frontiera, and he pays his respects to the great and all-powerful Samarkand. He looks at him and reflects that this is Lloyd Frontiera who flipped the monster domino. This is what he was after. He realizes that Lloyd Frontiera did all that so that he could meet him. He looks at him and thinks he needs to prevent a war from happening, as the border that their territory relies on will become a battlefield. He considers that if a war starts, the first person they will face is him, and even if the kingdom mobilizes its entire army to destroy the Frontiera territory, he can't guarantee they will win. He ponders the unpredictable attack power and acknowledges that he does not know what secret operations might be underway. He contemplates whether he should kill him now. However, he sees Javier and decides against it, realizing that there's a bomb inside the palace. Even if he defeats this sword master, the capital city might turn to ash. Lloyd Frontiera thinks deeply, considering that there might be another choice for the great Sultan Samarkand besides talking. Samarkand thinks, how dare he threaten him? He commands him to let him go. Lloyd Frontiera believes he has won. He asks if he likes it. Lloyd Frontiera inquires about what he is talking about. Samarkand clarifies that he is referring to potasher and asks if it feels great to use it as he pleases. Lloyd Fronterer raises his hands, bends down, and exclaims Hora to the Great Sultan, expressing his enthusiasm. He wonders what's happening to him and feels flustered because he can sense his sincerity. Lloyd Fronterer concludes that it's because he is sincere and sincerely thanks him. He reflects that this situation is similar to a memory he has, where a president handed him a card before a meeting, suggesting it would make him feel better. He ponders what he can do but use it, realizing that luxury and money are the best remedies. He concludes that if money can't buy happiness, it's because one does not have enough money. Samar Khan asks if he is not afraid of Magentano's suspicions and mentions that he accepted to lead the nation's escort, even bowing his head in thanks. He questions if Lloyd Fronterer is not worried. Lloyd Fronterer responds that no, he is not. Samar Khan thinks to himself, how can he be so arrogant, replying without even considering it. Lloyd Fronterer explains that it's because the money that the Magentano kingdom gave him is more than what His Grace, the Sultan, offered him. He suggests that this implies if he were to receive more money, he might betray the king. Lloyd Fronterer confirms this and privately wonders if he is crazy to think his eyes are quivering because he can't read him. He mentions that if he were to serve the Sultan merely because he succumbed to the temptation of money, he is concerned that the Sultan would question his loyalty. Samar Khan laughs and thinks to himself how dare this person play him, and then agrees, stating that he will hear what he has to say. He admires his audacity, realizing that he wants to integrate him into his circle. Lloyd Fronterer internally celebrates a small victory and inquires if the Great Sultan desires war. He questions what he would do in such a scenario. Lloyd Fronterer speculates whether it is because he wants to suppress foreign enemies after the drought led to a rise in unstable power. He assures that if so, he will end the drought and promises to allow the Sultan to communicate with Magentano's delegation. Samar Khan expresses interest and asks for more details. Lloyd Fronterer then presents him with some papers, signaling another triumph. After a while, Lloyd Fronterer sits at the table with Javier, holding papers, and asks if he saw the Sultan's face when he wrote the contract. He laughs and remarks that the Sultan seemed to be sweating. Javier agrees, commenting that it's an unbelievable amount, and Lloyd Fronterer is going to go down in history for being the first to outmaneuver a Sultan. Lloyd Fronterer questions what he means by screwing him over and argues that this deal is much cheaper than war. He explains that the areas of Isfahan are gradually becoming impoverished due to drought, and Samarkand is not actively aiding them. Eventually, the whole area united and revolted. He reflects on the order of events in this world, particularly in this situation, being completely different from the novel. He concludes that if a war breaks out before the rebellion, it will result in a significant loss. He believes that the best choice right now is to mitigate the danger. Meanwhile, Samar Khan stands on the rooftop, and his daughter, Sarajard, approaches him and asks if he called for her. He informs her that he will assign her a mission. Tomorrow, a man named Lloyd Fronterer will head to Kandahar, and she will be his escort and make him hers no matter what. She acknowledges his command and agrees to follow it. The scene shifts to the next day as Sarajard approaches Lloyd Fronterer, holding his camel rope. She introduces herself as Sarajard, who will be escorting him. She will be in his care. He politely excuses himself, stating that he already has an escort knight. She persists, affirming that she will be in his care. Lloyd Fronterer perceives her as stubborn and wonders if she is here to monitor him. He recalls her name and reflects on her identity as Isfahan's princess, questioning why a princess would be going to a construction site. She demonstrates her determination and reiterates that she will be in his care. He observes her unexpected chic pose, but is perplexed by the intensity in her eyes, sensing hostility. He interprets her actions as a message to win his affection. However, he doubts Sarajard's affection towards him. He speculates that Samar Khan desires him to become his son-in-law and dismisses the notion of receiving affectionate letters from the older man. Lloyd Fronterer explains that the solution to solving the drought is Kanat. It's similar to the trench that was used in the Fursia kingdom, and the stream of hot water from the desert ground will evaporate before it reaches the city. He states that's why they need to make the tunnel deep underground, and in the desert, dozens of kilometers from the city, there is a clean water source made from perpetual snow, and that's what they are going to use. Meanwhile, in the heart of Kandahar's central city, Kandara, Lloyd Fronterer lies down on the bed and says he finally gets to rest. He thinks he wants to sleep today, but it's so freaking burdensome. He recalls Sarajard's poses and thinks like those eyes, she makes him feel like she will slice his stomach open and then take all his guts and intestines out. He gets up and sees Sarajard making poses and asks if they can talk for a bit. He suggests first that she stand comfortably. He asks why it feels like she is ready to chop his neck off. She responds that it's a natural pose. He agrees and says yes, he understands. Let's compromise. He thinks about Sarajard, the youngest of the 4 princesses of the desert, whom Samar Khan treasures the most. She is a swordsman who earned the title of sword expert at a young age. He acknowledges that the desert princesses are concealed, and no one outside the palace knows their identity. He decides that he should feign ignorance of her identity, and that he needs to thwart her seduction plan no matter what. He asks if she shouldn't also rest during the night. She responds that Samar Khan ordered her to guard him. Day or night, she must stay next to him. He insists that he doesn't need an additional guard day and night. He points to Javier and asks if she sees that guy over there, just staring at him. He clarifies that, as he has said, he's his escort guard, a swordmaster. He states that he is a high sword master at that. 10 people like Miss Sarajard know he would rather have him than 50 of her. He clarifies that he doesn't need her. That's what he is saying. She gets angry and takes out her sword. He observes that she got angry and pulled out her sword, and he is scared and trembling. He gestures, instructing her to slice quickly and then report to Samar Khan. He states that if he were to slice off the neck of the person he was supposed to guard, then Samar Khan would say, "This man who couldn't even become a swordmaster managed to ruin their mission. How amazing." He explains that as a reward, Samar Khan would put his head on a picket with a message written on it, mocking his inability to become a swordmaster, emphasizing that he wouldn't be able to achieve it even if he were reborn 50 times. She punches him in the face. He protests, reminding her that she's hitting the person she's supposed to guard, and calls out to Javier for help, asking him what he's doing. Javier responds by asking if he's having fun. She continues to beat him and declares him the worst trash before leaving the room. He lies on the bed with a swollen face and remarks that the plan was successful. Javier asks if he wants to get beaten up by a beautiful lady and comments that his taste is quite strange. He denies it, stating that getting beaten up was not part of the plan, and asks why Javier did not protect him. Javier apologizes, acknowledging that he deserved it, so he did not intervene. He questions the expression on his face, wondering if he is genuinely reflecting or just displaying his excellent acting skills. Javier speculates that Miss Sarajard was trying to seduce him and asks for the reason for provoking her so much. He states that first, he does not like the heat and the cold. If he ends up living here because he got involved with a Sveihan, it will be the worst scenario. Therefore, he needs her to completely give up on her mission. He questions if, with her considerable swordsmanship skill, there isn't something much more important that she needs to do instead of seducing a man. Meanwhile, Sarajard is practicing her sword outside. After finishing it, she moves inside and asks where he is sneaking off. Lloyd Frontra explains that they are preparing for construction, and mobility is critical. Therefore, if they have a rookie with them, they will lose speed. She assures him that she won't get in his way, so she will follow him. He responds that it's not as easy as she thinks since she is not a swordmaster. She tries to attack him again, but he casts some spells to stop her. She wonders what kind of magic that is. He continued his spell, and she thought it might be a sleeping spell, but she couldn't fall asleep now. He repeats the spell, and she falls asleep there, lying on the floor. He thinks that for those who have Swordmaster Syndrome, this is the best way. He turns to Javier and asks if he can take her, but he is also sleeping there. He questions why he is sleeping and remarks that he really wants to be funny. After a while, Lloyd Frontra walks down the street with Javier, placing his shovel on his shoulder. The people look at him strangely and stare. Javier remarks that the stares they are getting are not great. Lloyd Frontra agrees, stating that they are city folks who are not taking care of the dying countryside, but are living their best life in the capital. He explains that this project is not just large. They need the cooperation of the people here, but currently it's useless. He adds that it's not like they need to worry since gaining their collaboration is so easy. He then calls Pipodong, Bengal, Hameng, and Jigoming. He instructs Javier, Pipodong, and Bengal to go to the city center and build an intake station. Pipodong and Bengal run toward the city. He announces that Jigoming and Hameng are coming with him to the perpetual snowfield 40 kilometers south. He sits on Jigoming and starts flying, saying, "Let's go." Taming uses his one-shot power to absorb the water, and Jigoming holds him with his spider net. On the other side, Bangol and Pipodong dig a well between the city, and Haming pours all the water into it. The people there are happy to see the water and exclaim that there is water in the square. They all take their buckets and approach the well. Just then, Lloyd Frontera arrives and asks if they are happy or overjoyed. He wonders if he did something good and asserts that he did it, urging them to be grateful and to let everyone know about it. Lloyd Frontera addresses a crowd, asserting that he is the one who brought water from the very distant mountains. He states his name and requests that they remember him. The crowd becomes angry, and one person admonishes him to stop showing off, resorting to verbal abuse. Lloyd declares his intention to exploit them for a mere gulp of water, and in response, they hurl stones at him. Unfazed, he laughs and inquires if they are now full of energy, attributing their condition to him and laughing again. Despite their protests that he is not being hit, they find him annoying. Lloyd believes they won't easily let go of their resentful grudges, especially as he observes a person in a green dress. Acknowledging the stubborn individuals who have yet to touch the water, he plans to appeal to them little by little persistently. Meanwhile, people arrive at the well and remark that the water is filled to the top again. Another person wonders if it tops up every day. In response, it is stated that indeed Lloyd Frontera ensures this, committing to filling it up with water without skipping a day. The belief is that he will continue this practice until all men, women, children, and the elderly are on his side, and he laughs loudly. The onlookers comment that this situation is like a boomerang curved ball, and though he was close, he didn't get hit by it. Lloyd plans to bombard them with advertisements similar to brainwashing. During the night, a family enjoys their dinner, and their baby girl drinks water, expressing amazement at being able to drink as much water as she likes. She considers it like a dream, while Lloyd Frontera appears inside their house from the window. The baby girl notices him, and he points towards the water, stating that he provides it. The family finds this annoying, and it's sinking in. The people get irritated and annoyed by the person in the city informing them that the water is Lloyd, and this idea begins to sink in. He wanders in the city and once again encounters the person in the green dress, who removes their scarf, revealing long, shiny hair. They both gaze at each other and share a smile. After a while, he arrives at the water umbrella and proclaims that the water is Lloyd. He screams so loudly that he declares himself as Lloyd Tur. Javier asks if he performed group hypnosis, to which he responds that it's called continuous and diverse marketing. He asserts that water is good and water is Lloyd, concluding that Lloyd is good. He suggests it for headaches, toothaches, or period pain. The message window confirms that it's Devoran. He replies, well, something like that, while Javier observes him and reflects on his loneliness. The message window questions why he said that, and he explains that he said it for himself. Nonetheless, he states that since the groundwork is done, people should line up, as he is recruiting workers for groundwater construction. Meanwhile, he arranges the table for negotiating contracts with people for groundwater construction. A person approaches and politely asks to excuse him, Sir Lloyd Tur, if meals are provided. He responds, please don't worry about that. Food from all over the nation is coming here, as he displays a shiny pendant and mentions reporting to the almighty Samarkand. He presents the Padishar record detailing what Lloyd Frontera used on the way to Kandahar, while Samarkand reads a lengthy message sent by Lloyd. Samarkand becomes angry and verbally abuses him. On the other side, Lloyd Frontera and Javier sit on Jigoming and fly. Lloyd reflects that, as expected, he can't see it, indicating it's deeper than 5 meters. He considers that employing the citizens won't matter, and that digging a 35-kilometer waterway will take too long. He concludes that what he needs now are the rebel organization's tunnels to escape the suppression of religious people from hundreds of years ago used by the rebel forces. Lloyd thinks there's only one way to find these tunnels. Meanwhile, they arrive at the palace, where Sarajard directs her sword toward Javier, stating that she'll repeat herself, please move aside. Javier, positioned by the door, apologizes, explaining that the young master desires solitude for the night. She argues that there is a power shift, a rebellion, and it's perilous to leave Sir Lloyd alone, while he sits in his room contemplating something. Javier agrees, acknowledging the potential danger, but asserts that the young master insisted he would be fine. As he speaks, robbers discreetly enter his room through the window. Sarajard emphasizes the need for an escort guard to prepare for unforeseen situations, expressing concern that unexpected danger might befall Sir Lloyd. Javier rejects the suggestion, affirming the young master's judgment. Sarajard remarks that he is an adamant person, and then attempts to skillfully bypass him. She attacks Javier, who calmly blocks her assault with his sword and remains standing unperturbed. Javier acknowledges her talent, stating that no one could overlook her current skill. In response, she becomes angry and repeatedly attacks him. However, he calmly blocks all her assaults and advises her not to forcibly increase her mana, as humans can't store more mana than a certain amount. He further explains that she should oscillate the mana particles quickly, emphasizing that the energy generated from these vibrations is crucial to becoming a sword master. She declares that she has no intention of learning from him. Javier reveals that the young master, Lloyd, requested him to attempt turning her into a sword master. Meanwhile, the robbers kidnap Lloyd Frontra from inside the room, tying him up on a chair and covering his face. They form a circle around him. Termes questions Lloyd Tur, the person who came from the capital, asking about his intentions in their city. Lloyd breathes heavily and requests them to uncover his face. They comply, revealing his face. Lloyd reflects on the situation, finding it strange that although they are the ones who kidnapped him, it feels like they are the ones who got kidnapped. Lloyd Frontra states that if they want to know why he came, they'll need to first hear the details of the situation that brought him there.